Hey everybody, what's going on? Danny the Count Koker here with another edition of the Count's Finer Details. Today, I want to talk to you about my van. I love this van. I'm a 70s guy. I love 70s vans. This one technically, if you look at the title on it, is a 1981 Chevy C10 van. She's sitting here on the showroom floor in my shop here, Count's Kustoms, here in Las Vegas. So if you take the tour and you come down to Count's Kustoms and wander around, you'll see this van in person, which, by the way, reminds me on some of these Count's Finer Details segments. I got a few of you that say, I love these segments. I love the fact that you're showing us your personal stuff. Man, would you please start it up so I can hear it? I'll tell you why I don't do that a lot here inside of the showroom, and that's because I put cars away properly. So to put vehicles to sleep properly, I like to do them properly, man. You drain them of the fuel, you drain them of fluids, you take the batteries out of them, things like that. So for me to just wander around inside of the museum and turn the key and fire it up, ain't gonna happen, so get over it. Enjoy looking at them. Maybe one of these days I'll wake this baby up and we'll do another segment of driving around in it. But in the meantime, I want to tell you about it. This van is a 1981. I've owned it since 1982. So that ought to tell you something about my love for this van. We go way back, and it's seen several different configurations over the years. It's interesting, when I first got it, it was a straight six automatic air-conditioned, power steering van. Wasn't a lot of gusto, and it was a cargo van, and I used it for those purposes. And then one day I literally blew up the straight six, and I'm not kidding you when I say blew up. I blew it up, man. I mean, there was a hole in the side of the block. It was toast, which was a fabulous excuse then to put a V8 in it. So now she has a small block Chevy 350 V8 in it that has been mildly built, so it's extremely streetable. It's got like a nice RV cam in it, aluminum intake, nice 4-barrel carb, great dual exhaust, all the type of things on a small block Chevy that would give it very strong power without being not daily drivable, usable. So it's got good towing power. If I want to tow with it, I do have a Class 3 hitch on it on the back. So those of you that know me, you know I am a 70s guy. You know, if you've been paying any attention over the years, I always talk about being a 70s guy. What is more 70s in the 70s culture than an old school 70s van? I mean, they were so popular back in the day, man. The 70s had a lot of cool style, had a lot of cool flair. I mean, the clothing was cool, the music was cool, the choppers were cool, all that stuff was cool. The hot rods were cool, the cars were cool, all that stuff was neat. But vans had a big culture. It was like a big cult following of 70s vans. And I mean, people would turn them into party machines, man, and they would reflect the owner's personality. They would reflect the owner's vibe. People traveled in them all over the place. They were outfitted with everything you could think of to put on the inside. And then, of course, the outsides were always customized to reflect what the owner loved. So back in the 70s, man, to see custom vans was not really out of the norm. Custom vans were all over the place. It's got your typical 70s mods on it. It's got the big chin spoiler with the fog lights set in it. It's got the spoiler that wraps into the front mutter style fender flares on it. It's got the rear mutter style fender flares on that. It's wearing the traditional Koker chrome SS wheels on it, 15 by 10 inch reverse in the rear to fill out those flares, 15 by 8 inch reverse in the front to fill out those flares. I want to give props to a gentleman that used to work with me here named Christian Sosa, a great metal fab guy. He's got his own shop here in Las Vegas now doing metal fab, great guy. But I wanted to do something different with the exhaust. Typically on 70s vans, you see a lot of, side pipes and things like that. which I love. I've got another 70s style van that I might show you down the road that's got side pipes on it. But I wanted to do something that were like the Zoomies that they did back in the day on it, but I wanted hand-formed, handmade, almost snake vibed Zoomies. So Christian Sosa handmade the Zoomie exhaust on both sides of this van. It's got the louvers on the back windows. It's got the visor over the windshield. It's got the porthole windows. You gotta have that in a 70s van. I love it. And it's the old school porthole windows. You can buy new ones, but they only sell them in flat glass because you gotta have that tempered glass for safety, you know. But these are the old school bubbled porthole windows. I love that. Now, I did do something to this van that's way out of the 70s, but it just fits the theme of the van. So stick with me, because at the end the whole thing wraps together nicely. I changed the taillights on the van, and I used the Cadillac taillights from the mid to late 90s, you know, those long taillights like that. But I put them in this van on the opposite sides and upside down. And the reason that I did that is because the curvature of those taillights really complement the shape of the van, the way they sit in there. And then also, when they're activated, either by hitting the brakes or by turning on the lights at night, they tend to look like fangs because they taper sharp at the bottom. The van has a very vampire theme throughout, so the taillights just really kind of added to that. And personally, I dig them. I love them. Plus, they're really bright, and I don't want people hitting me from behind. I hate that. So, being that guy from the 70s, I kind of always knew I wanted a 70s van. I just love the styling, the representation, the flair, the coolness of a 70s van. When I scored this van, and it was in '82, and I had it for some period of time, and I really wasn't too sure exactly the direction I wanted to go with it. I remember I was living in South Florida at the time, on the east coast of South Florida, and there used to be a van running up and down the coast in South Florida that always got my attention, and it was a Rolling Stones themed Chevy van. And they did all the flares and the spoilers and the scoops and all the cool stuff on it, and it was done in black. I remember it was done in black, and I remember it had the old black turbine rims on it with like the edges that were machined off, so you'd have like the silver edges on the black turbine rims that filled out the flares really nicely, and it had the big Rolling Stones logo on the side, you know, the big lips with the tongue hanging out and everything on the side of it, and it was just so cool. And that thing ran up and down the coast all the time. I don't know who the guy was that owned it, I don't know what he did, but it was something that I saw all the time, and it motivated me to get off my butt and take my plain old cargo van and start going back into the 70s and making it a 70s cool custom van. Inside of this van also very 70s with mild modern touches to it. She's got captain's chairs and a couch in the back. The captain's chairs and the couch are all trimmed in black, but the surfaces of them are all done in red crushed velour. The dash is black. It has a small overhead console in between the visors with all kinds of switches for lighting and things like that in it. It's got, of course, air conditioning out of the dash. It's got air conditioning in the rear that runs down a roof console with vents out of that. It's got red shag carpet everywhere. The walls, the floor, all over the place. Red shag carpeting throughout on this baby. The floors have got probably 5-6 inches of foam before we stretched and wrapped that carpet on it, so everything is super cushy. I just love that vibe. The outside, there are more finer details on the outside of this van than I probably have time to talk about. All the paintwork on this van was done right here at Counts Customs by my man, Ryan Evans, who went crazy. I told him I wanted a vampire theme. I wanted the van to be red this time. It had been everything else over the years. Now I wanted her in red. So we did a vampire theme paint job on it. Tons of graphics, lots of panels, very much paying tribute to the vans of the 70s. There's a lot of panel work. All the panels are separated in hand-turn real silver leafing throughout, so you got silver leafing all over the van. There is graphics on the sides that kind of mimic what might be flames, but they're laid out so very, very differently than flames would be. On the hood, there's beautiful, looks like praying hands with almost looks like a rosary with a cross hanging off of it. But if you look really into the finer details, the hands are like stone. I mean, they're like cracks and stuff throughout them. It's got a great vibe on that. On the back doors, there's skulls that were also done in leafing that are absolutely gorgeous and airbrushed over the leafing that add to that. And so, sticking with the vampire theme, Ryan whipped out some wicked vampire murals on the side of this van. Very, very tastefully done. It kind of depicts a vampire overlooking his castle type of a vibe. The moon, the bats, the wolf to his side, the whole bit. It's very 70s. It's very vampire. It's very me. I love this van. Like I said, I've owned her since 1982. I've driven this van literally across the country and back more than once. I've road tripped a lot of times in this van. Sometimes just the van, sometimes just pulling trailer, sometimes with the couch taken out of it and hauling a chopper inside of it with me as well. This van's got a lot of good special memories with me, and I hope that this van will stay with me forever. Enjoy it, check it out. It's the 70s at its best, man. And to me, there was a lot of great things that came out of the 70s, and so this is one of my ways of paying respect to an era that I absolutely love. So I hope you've enjoyed this segment of Count's Finer Details on my 1981 Chevy C10 van, done 70s style, the Count's Kustoms way. Dig it.